The broadcast is live. Here we go.
Oh
A
man,
little late, but on time.
I'm still Esquire. Okay, yeah,
Esquire.
yeah. I have real credentials. You figure I'd use them, but Esquire's fake from what I've heard. And what cracks me up is there's a lawyer's office down in Richlands that got a whole a whole mural put up in the middle of town, and he put his credentials at Esquire. I'm like, what kind of lawyer is that?
That means that Tim has two salad forks now, one bigger than the other.
John C. is here.
Mm-hmm. I think John C. is always first. So. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, everybody's popping in. We got a little bit of a lag.
Who is Simeon?
It's good that a Simeon is saying because I got all the movies, and it doesn't usually work out that way.
Unruly Simeon is a great name.
David McKenzie. All right. And Rob Ripa. All right.
Do any Simeons follow the rules? I don't know.
Okay. Well, I kind of like. I wish we would like this would work with us talking about the lottery and stuff. But there's been a few things we've talked about, and it's like fell in my lap. All I got to do is get out of the house, But apparently, I have the first Mr. X now. That seems to have been a trending topic on here, at least once to show. But the interesting thing, this is called Vortex number 2. All right, I wasn't even looking for this. I went to the mall. They had the people at the card show again, and this time they had like musty old. A box of trades and all this stuff. I think I got like 20 of them for $15. But this is supposed to be the first appearance of Mr. X, but he's only on the cover. This is from 1982.
Right.
And apparently from that, 10 minutes of digging I did that night, this is considered his first appearance just because he's on the cover. I don't know how I feel about that, Nobody even knew this was a character. They just thought it was like, since he's not inside, they were just like, "Oh, cool cover,"
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that one.
Yeah, and then I went ahead and I won a cheap trade of Bean World. Okay, cool. But before this came in, they had in there for $1. The one that Eclipse put out, the exact same floppy trade from the 80s. This was from the 80s. Right. This is probably like around 2016 or something of Bean World. You talk about
beans
when it rains, it pours, and it was raining beans. There you go.
And then the beans sprout.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to dig my copies of those out again because I don't think I've read them since the 80s.
Scott sent me a message asking if I'd read them. I'm hearing beans. I'm like, let's eat it. But has everybody read Bean World? Has anybody read this?
I haven't read all of it, but I've read most of it.
It was on my pull list in the 80s, so I've read all of it, but I haven't read it since then, I don't think. Matter of fact, you remember when my jacket I've talked about with all the buttons on it that
you've shown it, sir. You've shown it. Yes, you've shown it.
I painted my own Bean World button on it because I used to sometimes paint buttons just for the heck of it. I was in art school after all. I painted my own Bean World button with the little beans on it. So,
well, the Alpha Bean, I think his name is Mr. Spook, but what's bad is I keep trying to not call him Mr. Spock.
Nah.
But
another reason I like Bean World is kind of personal in that when I was growing up, I had a cousin died young, unfortunately, at 21, but he was 40 years older than me. And he used to make these drawings he called the potato people, who were basically looked like the beans of the Bean World. But instead of, beans, they were potatoes. So they were little potato-shaped guys with arms and legs. And he'd make all these complex drawings on loose leaf paper, where like each line of the loose leaf was a different level of the potato people. And he'd have them all going around doing things like moving wheelbarrows, digging stuff, whatever they were doing to make their little potato world better. And I was always fascinated with that as a kid, of his drawings.
You can graph paper.
That's what Bean World reminds me of.
Forever.
Yeah. That's where it gets kind of weird a little bit. But I think I think people who enjoy The Far Side by Gary Larson might get a kick out of this. Where I've never read it and went in with fresh eyes, no idea about it. It's almost like somebody took an old biology book you'd have in elementary school and decided to make it a comic. Because the first thing it does, it tells this little adventure, and it shows how this little bean world and the grandma and pa tree, that's what it's called, grandma pa, it's symbiotic. It shows this symbiotic little world that's self-contained and how they feed each other, depend on each other. But the way they draw it and stuff, I feel like I'm reading a biology book that somebody turned into a cartoon when I was in second grade. That's what it reminds me of.
Right.
I think that's why it has its own feel. But I think if you like the Far Side biology science humor, you might get a kick out of this. But I've never read anything like this at all. This is completely unique.
There's nothing else quite like being its own.
I was actually surprised. I can remember when Larry Marder went on to be one of the executives at Image Comics.
Yeah.
One of the big wigs. And it was kind of like, what? The guy who did Bean World?
Yeah.
Because that comic does not seem like it was made by anyone who would go on to be an executive.
Yeah.
It's just so weird and different.
Maybe he's good at marketing.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, if I had the energy, I was going to sit here and act like I was drawing not act like, but I was going to sit here and draw through this whole thing and be like, "What you guys see? This is epic. This is the greatest thing I ever drawn." And then I was going to just pop up, and you're going to see that I just drew a full page of Mr. Spook there. And I just don't have it in me right now.
Well, I know what you mean.
Can't even draw a bean and then put some I can't even think of the word, bell-bottom jeans on them. Can't do
Yeah.
it. But
And that was their
their
catchphrase, beans are born to boom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how early that got on in there, but that was one of their catchphrases.
Yeah. And actually, I think I prefer, the nice as this is, the hardback. Don't get me wrong, that Dark Horse put out. I think I kind of like the soft cover better. I'm going to try a trick to get some of the musty smell out of these trades and stuff.
Okay.
I think it's where it feels like a children's book, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like,
I wonder how easy the original issues are to find. I got to imagine they're hard to find.
They're not easy.
If you're like me who has them, you're not. If you bought Bean World off the shelves, you've never sold it.
Right.
Because
I think that's the deal.
Yeah, they're not exactly expensive. They're just hard to find.
No, they're not expensive. Just no one has them for sale because they didn't sell tons of them. Like, whoever has them is like me, and it's like there was never any reason to. Even if I haven't read them since the '80s, why would I sell them? Because it's not like anyone's going to give me $100 a piece for them. So I may as well sit on the shelf.
What's going on here? Somebody said bye. We got people commenting saying hello, Tim, and hello to everybody. Somebody liked Scott's shirt, and then they said fart, and then they died. They buy.
Okay.
Creature from the Black Lagoon. So.
All right. So how about we say hello to everybody, and then I guess just show a comic or something.
Hello. I've got comics to show this week. That's for sure.
Dave McKenzie is here. We said Rob Ripa, Unruly Simeon, John C., Sequential Geek. I don't know what Sequential Geek has done, but when he comments on my videos, it only shows up in the YouTube app where you can like get your analytics, and it won't show up. It won't show up in the comments of the video, and it doesn't even give me the option of saying I can approve a comment. They're just
right.
I don't know
what device are you using to look at that on, Tim.
Oh, my Android. That's all I got. Most of my phone.
Have you tried it on your computer, like a PC?
This is my wife's computer. I haven't really played around with it at all.
Okay, try it on a PC instead and see if it
Excuse me. She said it's ours, Scott. It's ours. Let me correct you. Would you like to come on the show and say that? Come on. All right. All right. Ross Sanders, we've been through this. Victor Thomas is in. What's up? Notice Sequential Geek is not surprised about the comments that he tries to leave. And Ross Sanders did me the monster shirt. Yep. Awesome. All right.
Let's see the first comic I got this week.
Let's see.
First comic I got this week is another Case of Fear case. Only one more, only one more issue left of this. A lot of my 4-issue ones are running out. It's Matt Kint and Tyler and Hillary Jenkins. Another Matt Kint paranoid one. The fear case is somebody gives you the fear case and says you have to give it to your person you hate most, or it'll go to a person you love in 3 days. And these two guys are Secret Service agents, kind of track down what it is. And it's a fun book. I'm enjoying it. The only problem is I decided that, because I've heard people criticize this book. They don't like the art in it. And the art to me isn't bad, but it's unresolved. It's kind of like you can just tell that, the guy drawing this isn't making a ton of money. And he's doing it. He's getting the job done.
It's like a passive aggressive middle finger,
It's like a B-.
It's kind of like I'd like to see. It just makes me say I wish comic book artists were better paid so they could spend more time on it.
Sure,
but I can tell it's not like it's bad. The storytelling is good, but there's a lot of sketchiness to it and a lot of unresolved places and the unresolved parts of the drawing where you'd go, man, he should have spent more time on that. But I understand him not spending more time on that because a 4-issue series from Dark Horse, I know how little comics pay these days. So it's like, a 4-issue series from Dark Horse that he's got to make money. He's got to do it. He's got to get the pages done. And that's what he's doing. He's getting the pages done. But sometimes I'm looking at it going, I wish he could spend more time on this. I like that I could understand people not liking the art because some of it is unresolved. And
so you say unresolved. I use the term like first draft if it was written and you don't go back and
sort of like that, but it's probably not actually the first draft when it comes to art, but it's still he can only spend so much time on a page, and maybe he goes back and does a second or third draft, but he still only has so much time on that page. Mm-hmm. That's why I was saying unreal, but it doesn't quite look, I would say, like a first draft, and some of it's quite good, but not all of it is, and that's just I know that's just a time thing. That's just it's got to get the page done. What was that?
So it's not consistent?
It's not consistent.
Okay. And
it's not consistent in a way that leads me to believe he just didn't have the time. Right. Like I said, it doesn't look rushed or anything like that, because I hate to say something looks rushed at a lot of it, because it doesn't. It just looks like he's got to get this page out, and he did as much as he could to get the page out in the time he could. He had to get it out, kind of thing. And it's kind of a nuts and bolts thing. But I understand it, but a lot of readers aren't. They're just going to look at the art and go, I don't like it, and put it down. So I think that's the problem.
Whenever I hear somebody say it looks, it's rushed or rushed, I'm sitting here like they Getty lead it, and I don't even know what that means. It pops in my head, and I'm like, that means nothing.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's why. In reading that, I came up with that. It looks parts of this look unresolved. It's like, because drawing is all about resolving problems. You're drawing a face. How am I going to do that? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to resolve all those problems, and I'll have a face. I don't know that he resolved all the problems, but like I said, probably had to do with time and money, not talent.
Yeah,
got it. Has anybody ever heard of this? Johnny Nemo. Now,
I used to get that.
Here's what's funny. It's 80s, obviously. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. Obviously, look at this stuff. But I had a character that I would play around with in cartoon and sketch, whenever I did a notebook, like in study hall or something, right? It looked a lot like this, but he had a skull for a face. And it was the same hair, the same kind of clothes, but nothing this fashionable. You know what I mean? But Pete Milligan... I got this simply because of the color scheme, the pastels, the 80ness of it. I mean,
very 80s.
That and Paradox, was it? In the 80s, Johnny Nemo and Paradox. I think did Peter Milligan draw both of them? Had some of the nicest colored covers on them with these neon colors, even though there wasn't. Those are two really stuff I really liked from the '80s, just and from a design and color standpoint. Were those?
Yeah, that's a very
Peter Milligan.
style color.
I kind of assumed where it was so bold, the hair and a little bit of the sci-fi feel. I was wondering if this was like cyberpunk. And if Rob Rip is out there watching, he's going to know why I spend a lot of time trying to figure something cyberpunk or not. It gets in my head.
Nah.
That's pre-cyberpunk.
Yeah.
And speaking of color, this ties right in with that. In that I think I showed this when it appeared on Comic Shop News cover. I really like the color in this cover. Bloom.
Hold on.
So nicely done. Let's get you. Whoops. There you go. Lots of color in it, both the top and the bottom. And this cover sold me on this one. The art inside is nice too. Different artists, but the art inside is good too. And I think it was and it's also 40 pages by Hero Tomorrow Comics, who I don't think I know very, but they said they've been around for 10 years. Ted Sikora is the writer, colors, letters, and layouts. Butch Mappa is pencils, inks, and layouts. And Chris Aries Wenda inks on story pages 21 to 34. Anthony Cuzone does the flat colors. And this cover is by Bong Dazzo. But I think there's another mini, it must be. But I really liked this cover. And it's the story, when does it take place? In the 70s? Cleveland, 1969. And this guy, and the star of the star of the story is a comic book artist, at least by night. He fixes transmissions by the day, and he's an artist by night. And he's been trying to work on a comic, and he got inspired by this dancer he saw in a band, dancing with a band up on stage. So eventually he gets together with her so he can take photographs of her to be the villain in his comic. And then things get weird and crazy. And really nicely done. I enjoyed it. Good. And that cover is just nice. That is just a nice cover. Balloon.
Nice. Scott, did you say you got a book?
Yeah, it seems like as soon as I get on here doing a podcast, everybody starts messaging me on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I got CP Reader, I think, got a copy of this, and Comic Crack did a video of it. Got a book called Slow Death Zero.
Okay, hold on.
Who did that cover?
Very EC like.
Yeah.
Who was that?
William Stout did that cover.
William Stout did the cover. Okay.
That's why I got it, because of William Stout. But it's got, we were talking a little bit about this before the broadcast started, but it's got work by Bill Stout, Brian Talbot, Bruce Jones, and Richard Corbin. And that was Corbin's last project he worked on before he passed away. Peter Cooper, Peter Bagg, Mike Diana. So if you know the whole CBLDF thing, he's kind of infamous there. Rick Vetch.
A lot of big names.
Yeah, and then some other names that don't know who they are. I don't recognize. So
a lot of big
names. It's an anthology book. It looks pretty nice. It's
like a
anthology. There's all kinds of different art styles in it.
It's like a who's who of artists who like to offend other people's sensibilities.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have Evan Dorkin in there, so.
Nah.
Maybe they'll go for volume 2.
Dorkin, but he can tick some people off. So.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know, from just with Evan, it seems like he can be the nicest guy in the world or he can be the pissiest. You don't get anything in the middle. You know what I mean? Seriously. I mean,
I'll talk to you after the show about that. I got some other comics too. I got a bunch of issues of the current Usagi Yojimbo series.
Nice.
Always good.
I got a older Usagi Yojimbo series that's called Senso, which is Stan Sakai's take on the War of the World story in the Usagi universe. So it's it's got some science fiction elements in it. It's not canon Usagi, so to speak. Sounds cool.
Nice.
Oh, Jeff Nichols. Nice.
Hold on a second. Our callback. Sequential Geek just mentioned Strange Days, which was the one with Johnny Nemo. We got Strange Days presents Johnny Nemo. We've got Paradax was the other one I was mentioning. That's also Peter Milligan. And here's another Paradax in with it. And these came out like randomly. There's the original, I think, Strange Days that had all the stuff in it.
Oh my gosh, I had some of those. I wonder if I still have
Johnny Nemo with Strange Days again. And then there's Paradox, soon to be a major motion picture. There's Paradox. Is it Dax or Dox? Paradax, this is. And these were all by Milligan and McCarthy. And they all had these wonderful covers with lots of bright colors on them.
You know, I think I had some of those and didn't even read them and just went ahead and put them in a box that sold for like $20. You know,
this is good stuff. Paradox came out from Vortex. I have number 1 and 2 here. I don't think there were more. This Johnny Nemo magazine from Eclipse Comics is number 1 and says part 1 of 6. But I don't know why I wouldn't get the other 5 if they ever came out. And this Strange Days, there's 3 from Eclipse. So that's the stuff I got back in the 80s.
Nice. So you guys know what a habit trail is, right?
Yeah.
That's the...
I'm a big fan of Jeff Nicholson's work.
Yeah. A habit trail are the tubes that when you get a hamster or a gerbil,
right.
That's what you build for them to live in, and you put tubes in. So through the habit trails is pretty much about this guy hating his job. Am I on the right track here? But there's more to it. And Scott, you knew exactly who this was, Jeff Nicholson, when I posted this somewhere.
Well, it's got his name printed right on the front cover. Plus, I recognize the title. So,
well, you said you had another book, or you read another book of his.
Oh yeah, he did. He did a few other books. He did one that's called Father and Son, which is kind of a Peter Bagg kind of story where a guy and his dad aren't getting along. The kid's a slacker. The father's kind of an uptight, very conservative fellow, and they don't get along at all. But it's kind of comical. Mm-hmm. And he did a fantasy story called Colonia, which is. Boy, it's kind of hard to describe. It's kind of like if you think of, what's the name of it? Oh, doggone it! It's written by Jonathan Swift.
What's the?
Travels. It's kind of like Gulliver's Travels, although it's more in a colonial exploration in the early United States kind of thing. It's a really good story.
What's the artist's name again?
Jeff Nicholson.
Jeff Nicholson. He's not the Ultra Klutz guy, is he?
Yeah, he's the Ultra Klutz guy.
Oh, okay. That's where I know his name from.
Yeah. So the best, just, from not knowing anything about this now, I've known Jeff Nicholson's name. I mean, he's won awards. Like, I've seen the list of people, like when the comic book award come up, he popped up here and there, but he never put out enough material for it to stick, in my opinion.
Yeah, he hasn't done anything in the comics industry in a few years other than just stuff he's publishing on his website.
Yeah, and I read
up on Facebook showing some stuff off in one of my comic groups. I remember a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think he's got a real job, and not the.
He's got a real job.
I mean, this was stuff he did, but I tell you what, his stuff, he's there's simple things. I knew the art style where he doesn't draw mouths and doesn't give it pupils and stuff. This stuff gets the more you read it, man, it sort of starts kind of grating you a little bit, right? Like a Stanley Kubrick movie. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this is he and Stanley Kubrick could be kindred spirits a little bit, right? Yeah. But there's 2 pages in here that got me because he's just talking about a swamp outside of where he works and the way he describes it.
Right.
I did that before with some swampy stuff about where I grew up when I was trying to dabble and play around and do all this stuff. So I got mad when he made it so easy and simple. And I was explaining the same smells, and I was reading this, and it was one of those moments where I just kind of sit it down and I looked up in the air and I was like, "Son of a bitch," I'm like,
That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah. So if you can see this, you see this picture of a cat there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to go solo here in a minute. The detail is there. It's real simple. He shows a feral cat living in the swamp. He goes, they seem to hate humans and enjoy showing off that you can never catch them. So this guy won't draw mouths. You know what I mean? He won't, on anybody. His writing is very simple and to the point, but he still has an eye for detail because he made real sure to draw a cat's asshole. And I'm like, after reading a little bit of that stuff, work is calling. Look at that. But let me get off this solo layout, if it'll let me. But I just found it real interesting. You'll be all right. I found it really interesting that after reading that stuff, you start wondering if something means something. Everything means something that he actually draws. He doesn't waste a line. So I set it down and did not go back because I'm not going to sit here and try to figure out if a cat's asshole means something in this story. Okay, that was the whole point. You know?
Sometimes an asshole is just an asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
Just part of making you believe it's a real cat.
You're going to wake up at like 4 o'clock one of these mornings, and that's going to go through your head. And it's going to drive you crazy.
You know, at my age, I've learned when to walk away, and I think I did it just in time.
Evidently, the cat did too.
And movie world comics, I don't think they ever actually made the Strange Days movie. As far as I know, Paradax, even though it says soon to be a major motion picture, he never appeared in a motion picture.
Maybe they were just trying to get the comic to be worth $1,000.
Yeah, it could have just been a goof. I don't know.
Soon to be a major motion picture. Oh, wait, no, it's not.
Now, here's an interesting thing about the next one I got, which I also enjoyed. Silver Coin, The Ticket by Chip Zdarsky and Michael Walsh. And I think this one's going to be another sort of Ice Cream Man-like anthology because the story ended at the end of issue 1, and there's going to be an issue 2. So I assume it's going to be, and it was funny. I was describing this artwork in my pull haul video, and it strikes me as, I don't know what to call it, early 21st century indie art. There's this style that's developed that's sort of a mixture of David Mazzucchelli and David Lapham that a lot of indie guys use.
That's an interesting mix.
Yeah, and it's that those are the two guys I can see in it, and it doesn't really look like, and they're different. You know, they're different guys,
right?
But there's a lot of, and it's kind of generic, but not really. It's only generic in that most of the indie stuff is people in clothes. So there's a genericness to capturing people in clothes kind of thing. So it was good artwork, but just looking at them, like we need a name for that style, and I don't know because it pops up all the time.
Noir. Art noir.
Or early 21st century indie. I don't know what to call it. But Silver Coin was about a musician, I can say it, don't you worry, who playing in a local band, living his local life, has dreams of bigger things. His band can't break through out of the local scene. He's all upset until he finds his mother, who ran off on the family years ago, her lucky coin. And the lucky coin makes his music more, when he uses it as a pick, makes his music more interesting. And they start to take off. And, you know, there's turmoil in the band, and it's the story of this local band, and, you know, with a horror twist.
Gotcha.
So that's what makes me think it's going to be like a horror anthology, sort of like Ice Cream Man. But I enjoy. But the funny thing was, reading it right after Bloom, I realized that there are way more comic books about musicians than artists. And I think that's because musicians, just a story about a musician can be way more interesting than a story about it. Because an artist spends most of their time, you know, sitting in a studio drawing. Musician is out there playing in front of people. Yeah. The visuals of playing instruments are much better than the visuals of drawing. And it just struck me. I'm like, you know what? there's a lot more, and all the stuff that goes around. Like music is a participating thing. You need other people around. It's a huge business. You can make a story about local musicians who just play in their local, pubs. You can make a story about rock stars who have, but with artists, them doing their work is pretty dull.
Well,
So,
you're talking to a crappy bass player who did his last live show in front of a bunch of 8th graders in around 2013 or 14, and then you have Scott who tell him what you do, Scott. You play guitar.
Well, that's a different things too.
He plays guitar.
I do play guitar, not as well as I'd like, but I do. Play.
You gotta be kidding me. Okay, go. The 80s. I mean, he's picked it up twice
for it.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. So the musician thing and stuff like that. When you were sitting here like they have such interesting lives compared to an artist because they're out there and stuff. And I'm sitting here like that's a whole other live stream. I have stories and things I've seen. Things I've seen in real life.
Yeah. If you ask that same question to a musician who's also into comics, it would be interesting to hear their reaction or how they responded to it too.
When I was 17, the first band I was in, it wasn't like a high school band. It was with this 30-year-old guy who was stuck in the era of 38 Special, still had the mustache with the curly mullet. And then some autistic guy out of a place called Whitewood, which is like stuck on the side of a mountain, who was like, it was really weird. He was like blonde, almost albino, couldn't drive. He just sat there and would like stare out there. And then you give him a guitar and it was like he would talk with it. And I'm like, oh, this guy's our ticket. I ended up being a booker. I didn't know what a booker was, but they wanted to call themselves, they had some stupid name for the band. And I gave them a real good name, turned them on to Black Crows. And they picked Nightbreed for a name. And I'm like, oh my God. So I ended up booking us, not knowing that's what I was doing. But I was like, we got to play somewhere because we had one guy whose name was also Tim who could play. I'm like, all right, we got it. So I ended up booking at this bar in Kentucky across the state line. I never been, and all this stuff. And when he walked in, and you got to remember, I'm 17. This is the summer before I become a senior. We walk in, we go in there, and it looks exactly like the Blues Brothers bar with the chicken wire.
Exactly what I was thinking. I knew you were going there.
Yeah, it was real. I was sitting there. This is like late 80s, and I'm sitting here like, is this fucking real? You know what I mean? I'm like, is this a joke? And they did the thing with the lights flashing and everything, and I was just like, I couldn't believe it. And we had beer bottles thrown at us. It was real. Yeah, that was my first. That was my first. And it was so weird because I wasn't nervous because I didn't know anybody, and I felt more like a manager, but I didn't have these words. I thought I was going to be like a big musician, and instead I was better at booking and dealing with the money. And I'm the 17-year-old guy with the guy who still thinks 38 Special is going to be the Hall of Fame.
Yes. See that there's so many more interesting stories with. I think that's why there's more comic books about musicians because they're out there meeting the public and. There's all sorts of things that go with the musical life that don't go with the artistic life. All the stories about artists start when they're done with their work for the day and go out to the local bar. It's like every story starts the same.
Man, I wonder what happened to those guys. And I'm sitting here thinking about it. I'm pretty sure the 38 Special dude's not around. I've got this feeling. He hung on loosely and thought that's what you were supposed to do. He took it literal. I hate 38 Special. I can't help it. I hate them.
I don't hate 30. I'm not telling you I listened to 38 Special, but
far more
I could listen to, what is it? Caught Up in You. What was their other hit? Chain Lightning. That was okay.
They made a video where they were all supposed to be private investigators, and they walked them through a meat factory, and they were all overweight and had on trench coats with their thinning hair, being on TV, chasing a model who's supposed to be like this superstar thief. And you could just tell they were like in action, and they were all in a line looking at between sides of beef hanging on these hooks. And that's what I was
80s.
Like, this band is bad.
1980s music videos were their own genre that will never be repeated. I mean, just a whole bunch of people who had no idea what they're doing and how to make a video, but they had to make a video.
Oh, they would throw in a horse and a smoke machine and
Anything, every cheesy thing they could, because they needed a video. MTV
it was like
ruled.
it was like the cat's asshole. This means something, and it really didn't. They just threw in whatever they had, you know.
Then the next comic I got is our Italian one, The Deep Beyond, issue 3 of 12. It continues to be good. These guys just make a solid comic. Post-apocalyptic. They're searching for this, you know, people can only live in these domes. There's rebels. They're going out on an adventure, searching for this one girl's, this one guy's ex-fiance and this one girl's twin sister at the bottom of the ocean. There's some mystery going on. It's well done. It's well, I mean, there's no unresolvedness to this art at all. I mean, these guys are professionals. Whoever they are over there in Italy, what are their names? Andrea Brocardo and Andrea Maloney on color. They're just, I mean, this is just a really good sort of solid adventure comic.
Nice. I'm wondering if the post-apocalyptic stuff is coming back, because I know you got the Geiger also.
I have got so many post-apocalyptic comics. I may have 4 of them right here in this pile. I mean, they're back. Coming back? No, they're back.
Just to let Comic Crack know, didn't one of you guys just say that you bought a book because of Sleepy and Comic Crack talking about it? He's popped in here. I don't know how long he's been here.
Oh, that was Scott's. He got the same one as they did. The one he just showed. What's
Slow Death Zero? Was
Slow Death? He got Comic Crack got that one, and Sleepy got that one. And I'm gonna get it eventually.
My favorite Danzig song is "Can't Speak." It's got a cool video. Veritalk Comics. He's not a great comic book writer. And then Rob Ripa has said here, Peter Grable has some great videos. Yeah, I think he and NXS own 1985.
Getting back to Comic Crack statement, I actually saw the Melvins open up for Primus.
Huh.
They're still going. They're still going. Yeah. There it is.
This is the one that Tim just mentioned, Geiger.
You got the Larson cover.
This is a lot, and I just noticed he did that thing where he makes it look like a 1970s Marvel comic.
Well, that's an Eric Larson cover, I think. And Larson,
that's an Eric Larson cover.
Larson did that on Savage Dragon when he was doing the Commandy post-apocalyptic world.
He does that now for an alternate cover for every issue of Savage Dragon.
Does he?
Yeah.
I remember he started it. Well, the first time I noticed it was where I thought he was being cute. My whole point here is that he did a tribute to Commandy with the Savage World, where it was a post-apocalyptic, and he had Jack Kirby layouts, but he had like a Marvel banner on his image book. So where that's post-apocalyptic, I thought he was giving a wink and a nod to his Savage.
No. I think he just did, like, he only started it like last year, I think, or at least that's when I noticed he started it. Having an alternate same art as the regular Savage Dragon cover, but you can get it with the regular trade dress or this old Marvel trade dress, whichever one you like. But I liked this. This was solid. It's Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, and Brad Anderson. There we go.
Yeah.
The only problem with it was you didn't get a whole lot in terms of what's going on with this. Takes place post-apocalyptically. They tell you about the legend of this glowing man who's out there in the waste. These 3 guys who were like looking to salvage stuff after the apocalypse run into him, and he chases them off. It was well done, but I just don't know what it's about yet. I mean, I'm sticking with it.
It sounds like Fred Sanford.
Yeah. Nice drawing right there of our glowing post-apocalyptic guy. Pretty cool.
See, looks like an 80s.
Turned his powers on.
Looks like an 80s toy that you held up to the light to make him glow. So I'm down for that.
It does.
That reminds me. I just got some new dice.
Glow in the dark
It
dice.
turns out they glow in the dark. I was like, whoa, how cool.
That's because when you're outside playing craps and the sun goes down, you're still hot. Now you can keep going. You know.
But when Doomsday Clock came out, I was like, oh man, I wish those two guys would put this much thought and effort into a comic that wasn't stupid. So they're putting out something, so I'm buying it just because I kind of have to.
I saw cover C for that, and cover C is the same guy there you just showed, but he's up close, and I think it's a Fabot cover. I think it's his name. Anyway, but I got it just for the cover, one of the few ones, and then I saw it was post-apocalyptic, and I'm like, well, I can do this. I'm want to get that. I ordered the first issue, but I want to wait and get a trade of it, see where it goes. Where it's Jeff Johns doing his own thing. I wonder if it's actually going to be a pitch for something where he's got the movie ties for now. They're trying to cancel him right now, by the way, and I refuse to read the article on why. But Jeff Johns everybody's after Jeff Johns right now. I don't know what.
I know. I have not read enough Jeff Johns to be mad at him for anything. So I know a lot of DC fans like him, and a lot of DC fans are mad at him. So
no, I love his stuff. I just wish he would stop trying to be Alan Moore, because he has his own voice and his own ideas that he's able to, in my opinion, he's able to get those, execute those better than trying to be Alan Moore, So we got a few more people here. Sleeper Readers popped in. Glow in the dark.
Geiger is glow in the dark guy. And by the way, I keep wanting to call him Giger because it took so long to learn to say H.R. Giger instead of Geiger that now when I say Geiger, I want to say Giger.
Right. Makes sense.
I like how there's one name I can finally pronounce then. I get one. I get this one, and Michias Pitalik. That's it. What did he say? Oh, good. More
post-apocalyptic.
I feel like Sheldon Cooper right now. I'm like, sarcasm? I can't tell. I can't.
Yeah, Sleepy's a little tired of post-apocalyptic comics. And I've got a lot of them here, so I'm a little tired of them too. Even
I'm really picking up on post-apocalyptic stuff. There's a few things I like, but most of it just doesn't do anything for me.
I like a fresh take on it, and there's not a lot of that. Winter World, Starman's Son by Andrea Norton, Commandy. I mean, there's like a top 5, and then they're all derivative of those.
Commandy's good, and A Boy and His Dog was really good.
Right.
There are so many post-apocalyptic things. Some of them have to be good.
I'm just going to go ahead and say something that people are going to throw shoes at me for. Mad Max Fury Road, I thought was one of the most overrated movies I've ever seen.
Well, I never saw it, so I can't throw a shoe at you.
Bad. Visually, it looks good, but there's not much of a story there.
Yeah. Well, it's post-apocalyptic. The fact that they found a plot at all, and I mean, in post-apocalyptic, everything. I get what you're saying.
The story is to have a story to tell.
I'm glad it wasn't as disturbing as I got older than Road Warrior, when I realized that the guys on the bikes were wearing chaps, not because that's all they had, but for easy access with each other. As you get older, there's certain things that just sort of, dawn on you. Like, I've watched this my whole life, and takes the innocence out of a movie. This time it was just one-armed women and, people chroming their face up.
I mean, visually it looked good, but just the actual story, we're going to get some water, is like, okay.
I was waiting for the Maestro to pop up there once or twice, to be honest with you.
That's right, the Maestro. The next comic I'm going to show, I'm going to warn Sleepy Reader about first, because I don't want to trigger him. Because he's been complaining. It's ENIAC #2, one of the Bad Idea comics. And he's been complaining that they've been using a strategy of scarcity in order to make people interested in this. I was saying, I don't know if it's a strategy or just making the best of a bad situation, because none of Sleepy, who has more comic shops within walking distance than anyone in the United States, none of the comic shops are carrying this stuff. But there's the second issue, Matt Kint and Doug Braithwaite, and it was good stuff. And I really enjoyed the. He's so triggered. and I really enjoyed there's a David Lapham story in the back too.
I remember listening to a podcast a couple months ago, and I wonder if that's the company they were talking about, because they made deals with certain stores across the country, but there's only like one store in every state. And I
think it's more than that.
The same publisher.
I think it is. It's a few hundred stores. They made a deal with them because they're not going through Diamond.
And all the stores in major, metropolitan centers. So if you live out in the middle of nowhere, you're not going to get that book without driving 2 hours to get it.
Well, Sleepy's in a major metropolitan center more than I am. I mean, I'm in the suburbs of a major metropolitan center. But
how far are you from New York City, though?
40 miles.
Okay, see that's.
But no one goes from New York City to my local comic shop. They don't. That's what I'm saying. Maybe I don't know how they did that stuff. Two deer are watching me out the front window right now. I'm a little distracted. But it's a story. Now this comes with an interesting topic where I'm gonna pair it together for a moment with Nocterra #2, which I liked.
I have to say this about Bad Idea Comics. I'm not sure if they think they're being funny or if they understood that it's going to backfire. But a publisher cannot make money by creating artificial scarcity.
That's why I think that they just made the best of a bad situation. I'm saying what do we talk about every week? How comics need better distribution. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing if you're a new comic publisher, you're not going to get very good distribution, even in the comics world. So I'm guessing that they took that idea and turned it on its head and tried to make the scarcity the selling point. Now, the funny thing is I've been doing some work for these guys for the last 2 weeks, so I can actually ask them at some point, but I'm not talking to any of the big, I think Dinesh is the head guy. I just met him on the phone briefly. So someday I'll sit down and ask them that. But like I said, I think they're making the best. I think they took a negative and turned it into a positive. Because like you said, you can't make money through scarcity. That's a bad long-term plan. They were the second wave Valiant guys, the guys who relaunched it in like 2010. And I also worked with which is why I'm working for him now. He wanted me working with them. Warren Simmons and Carl Bohlers were both editors at Marvel, one in the 90s, one in the 2000s. And they were also both editors at Valiant. Like, I think Warren's the editor-in-chief he was the editor-in-chief at Valiant and at this company too. But my point I was bringing up and showing this one with Nocterra was I picked this one up on a whim. I picked this one up because I had 9 comics this week, and I was like, I may as well get a 10th. You know, I'm buying 9 already. I may as well get 10 and make it an even number. You know, and I kind of wanted to try because I kind of liked the first issue, but not enough to put on my pull list. But I liked the second issue a lot better. But the funny thing was, I was messaging with my friend Rob today because he liked Nocterra. He's like, and he didn't like ENIAC. And this is a story where I find it interesting where people draw their lines. We all draw our lines to where we find something believable or whatever. And he picked up the first issue of ENIAC. And the reason he didn't like it was ENIAC was the first computer that they used for the Manhattan Project, I think it was. And it went on in this story, it went on to become an artificial intelligence and threaten the world over many years. Gotcha. And that's what this story is about. This story takes place today, and they're trying to destroy ENIAC finally, because though it's been around for many years, it just started a countdown that they think is, threatening everybody. So they're trying to destroy it. And Rob, my friend Rob, is like, oh my goodness, ENIAC was a calculator. So he could he's like that's so ridiculous. ENIAC was a so he could not get over the ridiculousness of ENIAC, which was a calculator, becoming an artificial intelligence. Meanwhile, he loved this, which I found way more ridiculous, especially the first issue. The plot of Noctera is all the light goes away. All the light goes away. The sunlight, but everybody doesn't die. It's just like the world. It's just like the world, except now if you're out in the dark, you get turned into a monster and all these monsters. But everything's still growing. Everybody's still living, even with no. I mean, human beings can't live without the sunlight.
Is Vin Diesel in it? Just one.
But I find it funny that I drew my line at this one. I found it ridiculous, though I kind of overlook it because it's really just the sun is gone is really just. It's kind of like they came up with an idea they wanted to tell a story where it's always dark out, and then they came up with the reason we found out this issue that it's dark out was because these scientists were trying to link to the light in a heaven dimension, and instead they linked to the light in a hell dimension, and all the light went black. And it's like, I mean, I don't need the explanation. Like that ridiculous explanation is to me like blah blah. It's like that actually almost kept me from buying the second issue because I found it's so ridiculous. But meanwhile, I was okay with the calculator taking over the world. But Rob wasn't. Rob wasn't okay with the calculator taking over the world, and I wasn't okay with the sun going away or sunlight going away. Yet everybody's still living.
See, even if the calculator took over the world, all they would have had to do is showed it one of the old Star Trek episodes where Kirk goes into a logic loop with one of the computers until it falls down. And, story's over.
Kirk could always talk a computer into a meltdown.
Yeah.
But I always find it interesting where people draw their lines, including me. I find it. Why do I?
Yeah.
Why do I find one thing ridiculous and another thing okay?
When I watched King Kong and Godzilla, I could believe in gigantic apes. I could believe in Godzilla. I could believe in an ape jumping from boat to boat out in the middle of the water. I could believe in a hollow earth, but I could not believe that Godzilla can just look down and burn a hole through the earth. That's where I drew the line.
Well, that, aren't they?
What?
I think I can make ENIAC. I think I can make ENIAC giggle. I just tell him 531-8008.
So I want you see this. I've been doing this. I want to pull this back to reality just for a minute. See this right here, just for a minute, right? Okay. Have you read Sketchbook Diaries by any chance? Because I avoided this
plague for years.
This is from Top Shelf. And I avoided this like the plague because I don't know if it was Wizard or something. First of all, I've never ran across it. It never has been in a comic book shop. Never saw it in a dollar box. Never saw anywhere to buy it. So big deal, right? And this is the early 2000s. Okay. But when I did see people talk about it or do an article about it, I always showed this dude walking through the woods with the badly drawn, him. And they said it's his diary. And every day he draws his day. And it was like every picture I saw was him going through the woods. So I had assumptions. I assumed this was like just some dude who was bored and going through the woods having deep thoughts, thinking he was clever and existential. I was so wrong. Because this cover
isn't it amazing how you can judge something by the comic book that's in your mind, not the one that's on the page. I've done that too.
It was on a list with other books. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
They put it in bad company. Let's put it that way. You know
what I'm saying? You leap to you're like, oh, I know exactly what that is. I'm not going to read it, and then you read it, and you're like, oh, yeah, this isn't the comic book that's in my mind.
Yeah, it's on a list. There's 2-3 books you read. They were bad, and then all of a sudden, oh, this is in that company. They did a disservice to this.
I've seen. I hate lists, and I especially and every now and I refuse to read most of them because every now and then I'll read a list of like best comics of whatever. And like I'll see 3 of them that I'm like, wow, those are really good, and then 3 of them that are god awful, and I'm like, who is this guy? What is this crazy list? Oh, yeah. How can he have these 3 beautiful comics on this list with these 3 crappy ones? What is this?
If any list turns you on to something that's good that you hadn't been exposed to otherwise,
that's always nice.
Yeah.
Well, what's cool about this particular one, this is volume 3, and this covers January 2001 to January 2002. And real quick, I'm going to show you what he does, of what, so you know what I'm talking about here, right? But every day, it's just 4 little panels, and he puts a date on there. Okay? Or 3 little panels. But
Is
that's
that James Kolchaka?
Yeah.
I hate his art style, man. It drives me to the wall.
That's what I mean. That's one of the reasons I've sort of gotten out there. But it's quick for him. That's why he can do a section of his day. But
once again, we're back to what I was talking about, that unresolved art where sometimes you just have to get it done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to. This is not his job.
There's a day that he cheats here. Let me see if I can get it on there. Where'd it go? There it is. There's a day. That's a whole day work right there. Okay. But what's amazing about this is that, we're all enough to remember and stuff, I guess, but it's amazing because this shows you what life was like before 9/11, the day of 9/11, and then what life is like after day 11 by the way he's reacting and the way he's feeling and stuff. So I may never get the other 2 volumes or whatever. This is volume 3, but this is absolutely fascinating just on how the world changed in one day. He's just going along with his life and jolly and girlfriend, and then 9/11 hits and he shows his way of reacting to it. And then life after 9/11. It's fascinating. I mean, you talk about it's just cool to look at it and so take in the difference. It's really cool. Because he was doing it as it happened. So, I'm echoing. Y'all still hear me?
Yeah, you were speaking up on us a little there. By the way, Sequential Geek just made a comment a little while ago, and I'd like to point out that I don't know if he meant to do this, but he just named one of the plots of Invincible.
Simply Incredible Podcast is in here. He was on our show, a week ago? Yeah.
Yes.
He got his stuff.
Good evening, 3 little pigs and the big bad wolf.
I knew something was missing.
So which one of us is the big bad wolf?
Oh, werewolves of London.
Yeah. I want to hear Mind the Comics answer to that question. I'm just interested.
Which one's the big bad wolf?
Yeah, about almost 20 years ago, I also bought a James Kachalka book.
Oh, wait. This is Paolo's first book on the show. I'm ready to see it.
This is the Portuguese edition of Paradise Sucks. It's one of 2 James Kachalka books published in Portugal. I can't remember what the other one was, but I didn't buy the other one. I think this was the first time that I actually wanted to buy an indie book, and I was not impressed.
Yeah, just something about his art style just, I don't know, it's like just doesn't gel with my brain. So
yeah,
that kind of looks more like New World, actually.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
Little insect there.
Oh, I got something else to show.
Adam.
Make sure I don't show my address again. I've done it before. But my Kickstarter came in.
And even the elf is here.
You mean you don't live on 123 Easy Street?
Not since 92, brother. But anyway, this is the Master Edition, Spawn number 10, written by Dave Sim with Cerebus redrawn by him or something like that.
Cool.
Yeah, it's black and white. Comes with all the covers. Nice little extras here, little cards and little sketch cards and stuff. But this is I'm down with it. This fits perfectly with the Cerebus collection. And one of the reasons I think he did it, Todd McFarlane drew Cerebus in it, and more people in 1 month of reading Spawn number 10 in 1992 saw Cerebus that month more than his audience combined for a decade over at Dave Sims' book. So he's gone back and he's redrawn Cerebus for the story and added an extended scene or something. I can't remember if he redrew the whole book. I doubt he did. I don't know, but you get a bunch.
He can't draw that much anymore.
I know that he never figured out. They've never told him what's wrong with his wrist.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know how to fix it.
Mm-hmm. But I got a Nexus Kickstarter coming. I got an update just a minute ago. I'm not going to read it now, but I got to say, I'm very satisfied with this Kickstarter because it's exactly what they said it was. It's not going to blow you away, but it's kind of cool to see Spawn number 10 back with some extras there. You know, and the story still works. The story, it's amazing when you take things off of Earth or you put them out in the woods or in a swamp. You don't have to update the technology. You don't have any excuses for why people's phones don't work. They're in another dimension. They're in hell. They know they're in a comic book. You know, so yeah, it works. Keeps it fresh.
Let's see. I also got the new Savage Dragon, which is this is very much a Calvin and Hobbes take in this one. It's weird because Savage Dragon is very much a family book now. And by family I mean it's about a family, not that it's still mature. That right there is kind of Hobbes, and that's the dragon's daughter over there, and they just kind of go out and have an adventure. We get the end of the Thor story pretty quickly, and then we move into this story about the little girl and Hobbes, or Tiger Man, out for an adventure kind of thing.
Can I see the cover again?
Sure.
All right. A Walk on the Wild Side. They're on a street corner. It looks like it's 70s New York. That's a Lou Reed cover. They're waiting for the man.
I recognize it, but I don't know where I recognize it from.
Yeah, that's the song is Walk on the Wild Side, the song, but where he's on the street corner, he's actually waiting on the man because he's got $10 in his hand. He's doing Lou Reed. So that's when you said this is a family book. Now I'm sitting here like, you know, that cover. I'm like,
it's a family book only in that there's a lot of Savage Dragon's family in it because Malcolm Dragon is actually the son of Savage Dragon.
Yeah,
and I think he's only, and this takes place. They age in real time in this book.
Mm-hmm.
So he must be 21 or 22 now, but he's got 4 kids. And he's got, his wife, and they're living in Canada right now. He's living in an apartment with his wife, and I think 3 or 4, I think there's a triplets and another one. And the other one, and so it's like sometimes you get the adventures, like this issue a lot was the adventure of the kid going off with her buddy, the tiger, who at the end, she's like, I could go out with him. He's a grown up, and Dragon's like, yeah, he may be a grown up tiger, but he's 6 years old. The tiger just wants to have fun. The tiger guy, he's just like, hey, let's go out and have fun, little girl. Come on. And they wrestle and hit each other and get into trouble, like Calvin and Hobbes. There's even a scene where they slay her. Matter of fact, a few issues ago, when he did the issue that was his best-selling issue, that was all tribute to different comic strips. I think they did Calvin and Hobbes for these two in that one. So it was just a fun issue. The end of the Thor fight was fun, and the rest of the issue was fun. It's like just hanging out with the Malcolm Dragon family.
Nice. My other Kickstarter for the Nexus from Steve Rude and stuff like that's coming out. It's good. They just let me know it's going to be shipped on the 10th.
All right.
Is that the Gormando book?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got that one coming too.
Yeah.
By the way, at the beginning when I showed mine, these are only 2 of them. It comes in a block, this block right here of 12 dice. And I post a lot of my dice compositions on Instagram. I've been doing that a lot lately. But I ordered this. I ordered these dice off of Amazon last night at like 8:00, and they're like, "It'll be delivered tomorrow." It was delivered at like 2. I'm like, are there just Amazon vans with dice in the back roaming around?
You're obviously down the street from an Amazon factory, and they haven't told you. They kept it a secret. I bet it was delivered by drone. I bet it was delivered by drones. What happened?
But I gotta figure they don't have Chessex dice in every Amazon warehouse, do they?
Well,
can't be that good a seller.
At least in the one near you.
One of the top 4 or 5 dice manufacturers in the world. So.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I just found it funny.
Availability of that kind of thing. Yeah, they've got good distribution.
Yeah, I was just like, I ordered it last night while watching TV about like at 8, 9 o'clock, whenever it was. And I was expecting to get it maybe Monday. They ordered it on a Thursday, and they're like, "Oh, it'll be here tomorrow." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, Amazon sometimes will surprise you. Is like, like this got here already. That's kind of odd. Yeah.
Strange.
So I've done this thing here where I'm not sure what's going on, but I found these books that I've had for a while, right? And I've got some New Mutants here I picked up, but I'm doing that thing where all paths here recently have been leading to Sienkiewicz. And I've met him 2 or 3 times, really nice guy.
Yeah.
I finally have somebody I can look at and be like, I thought you'd be taller for a change, just of it being me.
Yeah.
But the 2 things I found out, I'm adding to the list. I'm up to 2 now. Things that really make me feel like nostalgic for the 80s. Dungeons and Dragons, Dragon Magazine, and Sienkiewicz art. You know what I mean? Because it got an emotional response out of me. It's like I get the same feeling when I look at Geiger's stuff that you brought up a minute ago, right? Do you guys have anything you want to say about Sienkiewicz? Because I just happen to have these.
Bill Sienkiewicz is just an awesome human being all the way around.
Yep.
Yeah. Take a look at the later issues and see if Elektra looks more like Amanda Connor in them. because by about issue 3, Amanda Connor became his assistant, and he started using her to model Elektra on.
Here's issue 4, so you tell me. I'll put red hair on her. Wait a minute, there it is. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that does look.
Well, I want to know who the Don Johnson with a bad haircut mustache dude is. Like, was there a model for that? I mean,
good question. Probably looks like there was.
I mean, he's got that skeeziness that you only saw in the 80s. I'm serious.
Yeah. There are certain artists that use certain models. If you know who they are, you'll see them pop up in the artwork.
Oh yeah.
Like Craig Russell uses Jill Thompson sometimes, and when you see it, you're like, "Oh yeah, that's Jill."
Yeah.
So he had Amanda Connor posing like that for the silhouettes. Okay.
Could be.
I didn't realize she was involved in the industry in the mid 80s. I always thought she popped up around the early 90s.
I think that was the late 80s, probably.
I mean, you actually know her, right? You know her.
Right. I know her.
I met her once years ago.
Yeah.
Heroes Con.
I've not talked to her in a long time, but
how old is she? Is she in her late 40s or early?
She's older than that. She's 2 years older than me.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm 54, maybe 1 year older. I'm 54, so she must be 50.
Yeah, so
because like I said,
than I thought she was. Then.
My friend Bunch went to high school with her. I think he was in the same year as her, and he's a year older than me.
Yeah, I remember talking to her at Charlotte. She was just amused that we had the same last name.
Oh, she was cool. I mean, I had a really cool talk about her about Silk Spectre and music, 60s music and Kinks and stuff. But,
do you know who I also went to high school with, but I didn't know her? I knew her sister who was in my class. Flo, the Progressive Woman.
Oh, okay.
You know the Flo from the Progressive Age? I was in school with her sister.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, I didn't know there was a third Courtney girl. That's how I knew her older sister and her. I knew her 2 older sisters, I should say. I think she was 2 years younger than me. Her 2. She had 2 older sisters, one a year older, one in my grade, and I knew both of them. But I didn't know they had a younger sister until someone said, "Oh, she's one of the Courtney girls," and I was like, "Huh? There's a third Courtney girl? How did I never know that?"
Now, for his memories that run as deep as what you're hearing here, for all of us to have ties to famous people, even though we didn't really need them, the least you can do is do what Rob says and give it a thumbs up. Let people know, we're not really doing this for you, but I'm going to say we are if I get a thumbs up.
It is a cliche about the whole 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but if you talk to more than 4 or 5 different people, you would be surprised at how quickly different paths interconnect.
Well, I'm going to go dark again here a little bit, but in the past year and a half, thanks to being able to see who gets arrested around this area and stuff, my wife has graduated with 3 murderers. back in the day. She
Oh,
went to high school
wow.
with 3 murders. One was my best friend that did the Pizza Plus murders, if you guys want to look that up. Yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah. I'm like,
I don't think I've known any murderers.
well, I read something that said that all of us, what was the actual number? They're saying in our day-to-day lives, be it where you were in a grocery store, maybe you were pumping gas, maybe you just walked past somebody on the sidewalk, we all come in contact with like 6 serial killers in our life.
Yeah.
Just like that. So
I know an American businessman who is in federal prison for doing a pyramid scheme again.
again. Well,
Hey, you made a lot of money the first time.
Yeah,
he had a lot of time to think how to make that work,
He wanted to be a racing driver, so he used the pyramid scheme to finance his driving.
We'll tie our crime stories in with a crime comic. Casual Fling, the worst logo in my pile.
I don't know.
The art inside is usually better than the art on the cover for some reason. And this is really a sort of thriller comic where a woman has a casual fling and then the guy videotapes her and tries to blackmail her. This issue, we find out there's a whole bunch of other women he blackmailed, and the woman's husband and her hacker friend are trying to figure out who this guy is. And it's very much, you can see them. You can see this one as a pitch for a movie, a sort of crime movie sort of thing, rather than a comic, because there's nothing outlandish in it that you'd expect in a comic. It's more not a whole lot of violence, not a whole lot of action, but fun. So I'm enjoying it. 4-issue series. This is number 3. It was AWA Upshot. One of those comics that no one but me will ever buy. You ever do that? You get certain. I get certain comics, and I'm like, no one's gonna get. And when I see that like Sleepy Reader doesn't get it, Comic Crack doesn't get it, Tim doesn't get it. Some of my regulars who I know buy indie comics don't get it.
I have a very obscure comic. I think it was published by Caliber or Tome. It was about a medieval monk. And I've only ever seen it pop up in one database in my entire life.
Wow.
No.
But then again, that Night Streets comic was one that I never knew anybody who had it but me. And then all of a sudden, Comic Crack got it, and it was like all these about 5 or 6 Night Streets fans came out of the woodwork on Twitter. And we're like, "Ooh, Night Streets!"
The only book
we got a club.
I'm sure there's been books that I felt like I was the only one buying them, but the one I can almost guarantee that I'm the only one buying is it's a book that started like in the 60s and it came out sporadically for like 20 years called Little Monsters. Whenever I'm out and I see one of those, I'm always real happy. I pick it out and I'm like, I probably have like about 13 or 14 of them now.
Is that a Gold Key book?
Gold Key might have had a little touch of Dale, but I doubt it. But yeah, it's Family of Frankensteins. Really cool.
Right.
I mean, if you're into the Weirdleys from the Flintstones. Wait a minute, the Gruesomes from the Flintstones, the Addams Family,
Right.
the Munsters. It's got that flavor, and I love that stuff. I love that '60s goth.
I wish there was a compilation book that had all of Charles Addams' cartoons in it.
I can't believe there's not. I mean, I'm never looking for it.
There's several different,
Yeah, I've never got
one big
Charles
collection.
Addams. Yeah, now that you mention it, I've never even got a Charles Addams book. I don't think you don't see them that often. They got to be out there.
I'm sitting here thinking. I think I've got a book with like maybe 2 or 3 Charles Addams strips or panel, but I never really thought about it.
Yeah, there's no big compilation. Kind of like if you think of the Calvin and Hobbes books, you have the individual ones, but then you also have that big box set.
Yeah.
I have one person out there.
My buddy Craig gets it. Yeah, I've seen people talk about it and maybe read articles about it, but I don't think I've ever seen one in real life. Little Monster.
Yeah. Well, like I said, if you like the Gruesomes from the Flintstones and the Addams Family, that kind of thing, it's right up there. And something I want to try to complete, and I'm actually totally willing to say if anybody's got it out there, give me a yell. But Innovation Comics. I mean, you talked about Gold Key and Dell.
Mhm.
This stuff makes their stuff look like quite the great literature. Talk about some straightforward, no real pizzazz, but this one almost breaks the mold. On a Pale Horse is based on a Piers Anthony book where a man kills death and has to take his place. And one of the three fates shows up and makes him switch clothes with death. Then all of a sudden you got this guy trying to be a compassionate death. It's supposed to have Satan in it and stuff like that. Well, they did the book, they did the comic, they did this adaptation, and I've never found them anywhere. And I thought I threw this out or lost it or something, so I was real happy. So, On a Pale Horse, read the book or let me know if you got these. I haven't been to a comic book convention in a while. I'm starting to Jones.
And then the last thing I got this week is a reprint of something I got a few weeks ago. This is ENIAC #1, not the first printing. That's another gimmicky thing they're doing.
The cover,
I guess any subsequent printing, I guess they don't expect to go higher than 2. It's just going to be labeled not first printing.
I swear I've seen that cover on a 80s metal album or something, or a movie poster.
It reminds me of the Scorpions with the forks in the eyes.
That might be it. But when I saw that
That's
cover,
what that face reminds me of.
The album you're talking about is called Blackout.
Yeah.
that's actually why I didn't get the book. When I saw that, I knew it when I saw it the first time around, and then I'm gone blank tonight. But yeah, that's bound to be it. But when I saw it, I was like,
But I like the David Lapham backup stories in these too a lot. I'm really the one in this issue was kind of fun, and the one in the next issue was good too. So it's like there's a main story which is I enjoy, and those I'm just a big David Lapham fan.
Yeah,
to see him do those backups is fun.
I hate that there's people out there that only know him from his mainstream work, if you will, where he did a few issues of I think it was Detective Comics, and I swear he did something with Age of Apocalypse. They were horrible. And I'm sitting here like, this is not the man who wrote Stray Bullets. This is not. I'm like, this is not the same guy.
I was late to Stray Bullets. I sampled a few issues early on. Wasn't grabbed by it. Probably because I think I got the Amy Race Car issues because it seemed really weird to me.
Yeah.
And then I finally started picking it up around issue 10 or 12. Matter of fact, I was just looking to buy the issues. Though I have them in oversized hardcover, I was looking to buy the individual issues recently on mycomicshop.com. But I didn't realize he worked for Valiant before that.
Oh, not only can you hear me?
Yeah.
Not only did he work for Valiant, but he showed up and showed up and showed up till they gave him a job. And then when he got the job, they sort of messed with him. And when they saw that he wasn't catching on to the humor and he was serious, I think it was Bob Layton, Engine Shooter or something, that looked at him and was like, this kid's serious. We might really want to give him a shot. It's like they just brought him in like they had no plans for him. He just keeps showing up. He was driving from Jersey to their office in New York every day or something. Yeah. And then something happened where I never heard the story, but Barry Winslow Smith may or may not have taken him under his wing for a little bit. That's why I followed him from Valiant to Defiant to his indie stuff. If it wasn't for that, I never would have picked up Stray Bullets. But when I found out he could write the way he did in Stray Bullets, I was blown away.
I was well into Stray Bullets before I found out that he had worked. I'm like, David Lapham worked at Valiant? I don't remember seeing any of his stuff there.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to think. There's some books where you can see the Barry Winslow Smith coming into his work. I mean, you watched him grow as an artist, and he had his own thing going. I mean, he's an underrated artist of the 90s. Everybody, he didn't go to Image, so nobody really remembers him. But yeah.
But you're right about his Batman stuff. Holy cow, was that awful?
I don't know what happened. I mean, I was all excited.
I was because by that time, that was the early 2000s, I think.
Yeah, probably should
somewhere around there. And I was all excited because I was a huge Lapham fan by then. I loved his Stray Bullets. I'm like, if you. And I usually don't like indie guys on Marvel and DC stuff because it usually doesn't work. They hamstring what the indie guy does best. That's just the way things are.
Yeah.
So there's very few indie guys doing mainstream work who I ever liked.
Yeah, it's like
they're
to this day, I think of Brian Bendis as a guy that did Jinx with nothing to do with his Marvel work.
Yeah.
Another guy.
But anyway, when I was all excited, I was like, oh, maybe this will work. And I read his Batman stuff, and I couldn't believe. I was like, I'm glad to hear you say how terrible it was, because I was like, is this me? Am I the only one who thinks this is terrible?
No, and I was super excited because this is a guy who's doing a crime comic on his own and nailing it. You know what I mean? Innovative. It's not, you have to read Stray Bullets to get that it's not like gangsters and stuff. I mean, it's a real. There's some real seedy stuff going in there, and it feels like a slice of life.
Stray Bullets is an A-level book.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're taking this guy who's already writing crime and you're putting him in Gotham, the streets of Gotham. It sounded like it would be perfect. Yeah. It sounded like it was going to click. And I don't know what happened. It was horrible. I don't know what happened.
I'm going to go back and reread those just for the heck of it. I don't know if I still have them.
I don't. I know I don't. But I feel like in my mind, in order for me to cope with it at the time, because I had to pretend he was sabotaged. I'm like, those bastards sabotaged him. They just didn't want the competition of Stray Bullets, on Batman. You know
who I'd like to see do a Batman book would be Francisco Francavilla.
Yeah, he's kind of along that same lines. I think Francisco Francavilla would have a better chance. He's more mainstream than Lapham, so I think he'd have a better chance. But one of the best, probably one of the only mainstream indie guy things that I really liked was Peter Bagge's Spider-Man. What was the name of that again? I can't remember.
I feel like I should know this. I'm going to laugh when you say it and find out.
I have it. It is brilliant.
Peter Bagge did Spider-Man.
Yes, he did. It was a one-shot issue, early 2000s, and he made Peter Parker basically this Ayn Rand devotee.
Oh, God.
So it's kind of like, what if Peter Parker was an Ayn Rand devotee of Spider-Man? And it's just brilliant. It is just one of the funniest things you'll read, and it's crazy. I'm tempted to go into my shelf and look for it, but I don't want to right now.
Sounds like a story that Steve Gerber would have put him in just to.
Oh, it's not. If
you could watch revenge on Marvel.
Yeah, exactly. It was there was
like you put a mole in there.
You could tell this was all Peter Bagge. There was no Marvel trying to rein him in or anything.
Gotcha.
It was just nuts.
It's kind of funny.
And I think he did one with the Hulk too. The Irredeemable Spider-Man. No, that wasn't it.
No, Sequential Geek got it here in the chat. Megalomaniacal Spider-Man.
The Megalomaniacal Spider-Man. That's it. Oh my god, that's my favorite mainstream thing that an indie guy did. I think.
I want to tell you something. Never heard of this. Never saw it. Never heard anybody mention it until just now. So well played. I'm gonna look at this thing up. I'm gonna look it up.
Look it up now.
Track it down. It's a lot of fun.
I remember seeing the Hulk book. I can't remember its name either.
The Hulk book wasn't nearly as good as the Spider-Man one. He was trying to kind of do the same thing, but it just didn't work as well as Spider-Man being an objectionist did.
Man, I'm the guy who, the Fred Hembeck Marvel roast, the Fred Hembeck stuff, and then you have Sergio Aragonis destroying DC and what was it, massacring Marvel. I mean, that's the stuff I love.
From the same new Marvel era around 2002. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm the guy that still remembers the rise of Zeb Wells through a wizard contest.
Like, have you read? I forget what year it came out. I think it was a little after that. Strange Tales from Marvel, where they had indie guys do stuff, and most of it was forgettable.
It was bland. It was the way I interpreted it. It was okay. We got these guys. Let's give them a shot. And then it was like, well, you guys are up to 11. You need to go back down to 4. These are Marvel books.
You could tell they weren't, they weren't doing anything nearly as good as their regular work. I remember I think it was the Beto story. Beto Hernandez did a good one. Other than that, yeah.
I've said the same thing, Matt Rasco. Eastman and Laird on Batman. I've said the same thing before.
Mm.
Bob Budiansky. He hasn't drawn since the 80s, I don't think. He's written stuff. He was an editor at Marvel in the 90s, and he drew Ghost Rider in the 80s, I think. He did some nice stuff on that.
Man.
I can't remember what did he create Sleepwalker? Or did he write it?
I've got it.
Yeah.
We went over this before, too.
Wait a minute.
I can remember a house ad for Sleepwalker. It's burned into my brain, but
I can't believe you brought up
him on Transformers.
I cannot believe you brought up Sleepwalker.
Ah.
I'll tell you exactly what's going on.
didn't that come out like right after Sandman did from Vertigo?
1991 is when it came out. There was like this renaissance at Marvel in 90 and 91 where they were putting out like 6 new books a year. Quasar, She-Hulk, whatnot, and Namor.
That's when all the editors created new characters so they could get some royalties.
Like they've done with the new Miss Marvel. So anyway.
Although Tom DeFalco explained in the 70th anniversary magazine that he wanted to pare down the number of comics that they were publishing when he took over from Shooter, and then he got the order from above. We're increasing the line.
That's hilarious.
What was that again? You broke up on me.
Tom DeFalco explained in the 70th anniversary magazine that Marvel put out a few years ago that he wanted to reduce the number of titles they were publishing when he took over from Shooter. And the first time he went up to talk to the new owners, they said, no, we want to increase the number of individual titles.
And they did.
So here's the book that everybody is going nuts over right now, which cracks me up.
Thundercats.
It feels good to have books you've held on for years. And I got some books over the years where all of a sudden everybody's like going nuts over them. And you're like, really?
Yeah.
But apparently this newsstand little thing on this is what really made everybody go nuts.
Oh, that cracks me up.
The UPC symbol versus direct Marvel symbol, I don't get it. You know what I mean? I'm like, I know it's a thing.
All that is people need something to collect. And when something becomes easy, they want the hard thing to collect.
Yeah.
I never noticed a difference with the direct copies and the newsstand copies until Image came along. You go to the comic book shop and pick up your Spawn number 1, 2, and all that stuff, and it's these nice shiny cover, the paper inside was thicker and better and the colors were brighter. And then you pick up, at the spinner rack, your Spawn number 1, and it's like flat and drab and on print. And I'm sitting here like, I don't want that. You know what I mean? So I got rid of all my newsstands editions because they were like crap quality. I had no idea there'd be a day where everybody was like, I want the newsstand. Yeah. I'm like, why?
Sometimes back in the day, there were like minor price variations between the newsstand and the direct. Like one of them would be like 5 cents different, like 35, 30, something like that.
Canadian prices.
Yeah,
well, there's no difference in the content. That's the funny thing.
Right.
The only thing different is the UPC and everybody and the trade dress. And everybody's like, "Ooh, got to get this one." And it's just because it exists. That's all it is.
That's very true.
On newsstand with that, decreasing it. Yeah,
always has something interesting to say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with everything he says, but I agree with the majority of it. But even the things that we don't see eye to eye on, he's got
a lot of good observations.
Yeah,
represents.
And I think part of that has to do with Denver, where he's set up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the biggest city in that whole geographical area by far. So he probably covers. He's probably he's a big fish in a little pond, if that makes any sense, compared to the rest of the country.
It breaks my heart when I see. I'm trying to think what he was on, but there's places where he'll comment back to people, and here I am going completely blank on it. What was the big famous comic book collection he bought to get this whole thing started?
Oh, that was the Mile High collection.
Yeah, I swear it was named after the
church.
Yeah,
Edgar Church.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart when somebody, and it's going to randomly spit out of my mouth, I can tell. But it breaks my heart when I'll see him comment with people, and he has to explain what that collection was. I don't know why that bothers me. I'm like, you know, I know it's not like common knowledge now, but that like made news back in the day, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Sequential Geek wrote a comment here about very fine newsstand. We understand that it might be harder to find a good condition newsstand copy. Our point is they're the same thing, though. Only collectors care about that. We as readers don't care. If it came through, it's the same exact. And collectors only make that distinction because they want to make that distinction.
Yeah, I think there's a belief that a
need to chase stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a belief that if it's newsstand, there was less made than there was for the direct market one. They survived less.
Well, they also have the belief that I think this belief is mistaken. That the people who got bought it off the newsstand treated their comics worse. That's not true. When we were buying all our comics off the newsstand in the 70s, we treated them nicely.
Although there's a bigger possibility that those get thrown away because people who bought at the newsstand did not interact with other readers, and if they grew out of the hobby,
they did. The newsstands were our. That's where we met. Everybody who collected comics up until the mid '80s bought off of newsstands. That's when it started going down. That's when the newsstand stuff started getting rarer. But I imagine the people who still bought off of newsstands. I mean, every kid I knew who bought off comics off the newsstand, which of course was everyone, treated them nicely. Yeah. If they were collectors, if they weren't collectors,
I've got a 30-minute video that I did showing everywhere where Little Howler Mouse got his comics. Right. And showed the comics and told little stories for each one. So this whole newsstands thing is a myth. I'm just, you know what I mean? I'm like,
if you were a collector of comics in 1979 and you were buying your comics off of a newsstand and keeping them in good condition, if you were a collector of comics in 1989 and you were buying them off the newsstand, you were keeping them in good condition.
Here's what I compare it to. Yeah, go ahead. I got to compare.
The term newsstand in this regard is anything other than the direct market.
Yeah.
Right.
Regardless if it's a newsstand or not, if you bought it at a drugstore, at Magic Mart, wherever you may have got it, that's a newsstand copy.
Yeah. It's the UPC symbol versus the little picture. I personally, this thing kills me because when I would get comics, I hated seeing the UPC symbol on the front of the book. It ruined the freaking art in my eyes. That would be a good poster. I would have displayed these on the wall if it wasn't for that. So I was like, put them on the back. Why don't they put them on the back? That's all I remember. So now that it's become a thing, I'm just like, this UPC symbol will not go away.
It's like getting a magazine subscription back in the day, and they'd affix the address label to the front cover, and if you peeled it off, it would like take half of it with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I got some Rolling Stones I'll get right now and show everybody what we're talking about. We were there, man. This is our Vietnam.
Yeah, and let me tell you, Sequential Geek, you're talking about kids banging up theirs on the newsstand. When you were a kid in the 70s, you knew when they put the comics out, Thursday afternoons. And you went and got the best condition comics there were. That's what I did when I was 10 and 12. That's what everyone did when we were 10 and 12. I beat the other 10 and 12-year-olds to the newsstand to get the best comics.
Wednesday.
It's a myth that they got banged up and people didn't care. I mean, I'm sure there were some kids, just like there were some kids who bought them at a comic shop and didn't care.
Here's the thing. Here's might be where some of these memories are coming from. If a book didn't sell out, it could be on that spinner rack for months. And the book wasn't popular. It wasn't good. It wasn't until years later that maybe somebody was like, this is a great series. Books would grow by word of mouth back then. And then the people would go around the spinner rack. And if they were there for a while, people would pick through them trying to find their book.
There were bad newsstands who did not change their comics very often, and you didn't go to those shops.
Yeah, they're blaming the victim, man. We got there and was like, how could they treat these books like this? We tried to take care of them. It was the people selling them. That's what was going on.
The idea that somehow newsstand comics were less taken care of by the people who bought them is just not true.
Maybe it comes from the last 20, 25 years. And I mean, I don't know how any comic shops before that, but you would buy them bag and boarded already.
Well, right. I think it comes from the fact that, by the late 80s, there were just fewer newsstand comics. Yeah. So that if if your chance of getting, I mean, I've gotten pretty banged. I know I do the comic shop every week. There are plenty of banged up comics at comic shops. I've gotten comics home and gone, what the hell is that?
Yeah, I think there's a fault
some
line of thinking too, in that the distribution to the direct market shops, for lack of a better word, was gentler on their books in terms of the whole shipping process versus a giant conglomerate that was distributing not only comics newsstands, but magazines, newspapers, and everything else too, where it's just like all.
But if they were damaged, they sent them right back.
Right. But I
never
think
made it out.
certain people may think that way, even though that wasn't actually.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And also, I think it comes from finding a mint condition comic from the newsstand from like 1991 is tough because there weren't a lot of comics on the newsstand in 1991.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what that comes down to. I don't think it has anything to do with mishandling. I think it has to do with how few comics were on the newsstand.
There's a series that kind of reminds me of where we're going, like when it really ended. Marvel Comics Presents. I remember when that came out, it was everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
By the time that title ended, you couldn't find the last 12 issues, and that was a weekly book.
Yeah.
Starman number 5. Okay, whatever month that was in '94. Marvel Comics Presents. If all this goes together, that's when that's when I didn't see newsstand anymore.
Hold on, I'll have to bring this. I'll have to bring this one out again because Tim wasn't here.
But if the newsstands were still it's still been a thing in 1994, 1995, the direct market crash would not have been a problem for the publishers.
Yeah.
Well, that's when books started disappearing. You know, that's why I didn't continue with Starman and picked it up like years later when, a couple years later when I was able to find issues and stuff elsewhere. I mean, you had Continuity Comics all over the place there for a while, and Marvel Comics Presents. I can just tell you that it just got slimmer and slimmer in the pickings,
I showed this one last week when you weren't here, Tim, because I got an order from mycomicshop.com. I actually bought back issues. I haven't bought back issues in so long. And what prompted me to get some was I got an email from them that said, "Oh, you got a back issue on your want list." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "I have this on my want list?" And I think it took years for it to get in. It's Marvel Comics Presents 174. Which must be, I think that's a really late issue. And the reason I bought it was because I have a picture. This is George Russos. I have a picture of him coloring one of the pages inside.
Oh, that's awesome.
Him. So, and George goes all the way back. He inked some of the earliest issues of Batman. He worked on Batman #1, not Detective Comics 27, but Batman #1. But these are so hard to find, I guess. Even my comic shop didn't even get it in for ages. I'd forgotten I didn't put it on there. But
174?
Go ahead.
No, 174 is next to last. The title was canceled with 175.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. Next to late February. Wow, so this is the next to last issue.
I'm wondering if there's a trend with Marvel books around that time where it got later on in the series, they knew it was going to end, that they reduced the print runs on them.
A lot of them they did.
That's the reason it took me forever to find the last 2 issues of Gru, because in comparison, the print run was a lot lower.
Oh, yeah. That's definite. Yeah.
He wore the white shirt and tie to work every day. I think he died when he was 79 in what was that, 1996 or something? So he's like 77, 78 in this picture.
See, I was getting ready to say with that suit and tie, I would have thought he was working at DC from what I heard. So.
He was old school conservative guy. He was one of these guys who back when he was growing up, everybody was prejudiced against him because he was Greek. So he comes from that. I was going if your name had too many vowels in it way back when he was young, didn't matter. If you were Italian, Greek, or you have too many vowels in your name, they didn't like you.
It must have been pretty neat because working with inks and wearing a white shirt,
Yep.
Right.
He had a lot of experience, but
Like,
he started being Marvel's in-house colorist in the 70s.
Oh, I know the name. I mean, he was in so
Yeah.
many books. I just know the name.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you know. But I found this at a Big Lots, and it was in my car for 2 weeks. I forgot I got it. It's the Tintin cartoons.
Oh, those were good. Those were great.
Right.
They adapt.
Oh, I didn't grab it, but I've got a 1978 Tintin book, Tintin in America, over here. I found with this lot that I got, and Tintin is huge everywhere else except America. I mean, I've known this, but I didn't know it was still going on. I've had people from South Africa contact me to tell me to read the books. The cartoon's good, but it doesn't get it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You won't know who they are unless I told you. But my friends Ruth and Darren, who you met at one of the RobCons years ago,
Yeah.
They actually went to the Tintin Museum over in Europe, and it's they took pictures, and it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Nice. Let me grab the trade since I brought it up over here. Yeah.
Grab the trades. Yeah, I didn't even realize this was the second to last issue.
Yeah, people
Wow.
outside of America know how big Tintin is, and here he's like, who?
Yeah.
The thing about Tintin, supposedly Hergé left in his will that he didn't want anyone else to pick up the book after he died.
Right.
I don't believe that's true because after he died, his widow was his second wife, promptly married his business associate, and there's been a war over merchandising control.
Gotcha.
Now, this is from
Since the
78.
1980s.
This is from 1978, of course, like I said, right? At Tintin in America. When you open it up, it shows you all the countries Tintin is published in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, yeah, that's just amazing.
Yeah. Can you check which publisher had Tintin back then? Because I'm not sure if it was still Bertrand in Portugal or if it was already Verbo.
It says Pan American Copyright Conventions. This is from Great Britain.
Look on the spine and see if there's a publisher listed there.
It says Magnet.
No, but it's remember that it's supposed to say the publishers in every country. So
well, usually I can find that stuff.
He's letting us down.
I know.
By the way, Paolo, did you read that article on that woman at St. John's comic that I posted on Facebook?
I started reading, but it's a bit big. But
it is. But it was pretty interesting. I loved. It was just some guy, and I think the Comics Detective blog or something like that.
The thing is, it goes through a lot of their biography before they got to St. John's. So...
Right, a lot of because I know nothing about St. John's Comics. Nothing. That's why I found it interesting. St. John's Comics was a publisher in the 40s and 50s. They put out a lot of comics, and it was just interesting. And he did this article about Mystery Woman of Heaven. She was an editor at St. John's Comics for I don't know, I didn't have 5 years or something. It's and he was just trying to track down what happened to her. And then it was pretty interesting little article on just this. First, you had the whole history of St. John's Comics and the guys behind it. They had some colorful stories. Then you got her history and who she was and how, editing. And she, I didn't realize that she brought Matt Baker over to St. John's Comics to do a whole bunch of covers and stuff. So she worked with Matt Baker a lot and did a lot of romance comics and just. I love learning about these little nooks and crannies of comics history that I know nothing about, the behind the scenes stuff and stuff like that.
St. John's got the rights to Mighty Mouse after Martin Goodman let it go in 1948-49.
I still have all the backsheet cartoons from the 80s of that one. Academics Today has some vids on Tintin. Hicksville, Jared. Hicksville.
You know what? I just wrote that name down again because I forgot it. Because I read Chris Gerusso's copy of Hicksville many years ago and liked it. I must have talked about it. And I was just thinking about it this week. I was like, I got to get my own copy of that. Then I was like, what's the name of it again? And I couldn't remember the name. It's Hicksville.
This is broke. The back
Mighty Man.
Mighty Mouse, the 80s back sheet. It was this and Pee Wee Herman, and then I could get on with my day, you know.
It's kind of an odd juxtaposition.
If what was on TV, one followed the other.
Right.
You know. All right. Well, guys, we can end the show, or I can bow out and let you guys go. Oh, yeah. Before I go, I also found this Return of the Jedi storybook that I had as a kid.
I have that one too.
Yeah. I sit there and I'm like, everybody wants the action figures, and I'm sure there's a couple I'd like to have back, but I was more of a G.I. Joe He-Man figure guy. But when it came to the books, I loved my Star Wars books. I'd really have
the first one, the what's called A New Hope now with Star Wars. I think I got that through the weekly reader program at school.
It's never going to be A New Hope to me. It's always going to be the Star Wars movie. Yeah.
But I remember getting the Star Wars storybook and just looking through it. It's like, this is so cool.
Yeah, I think you had that troll order book about the Millennium Falcon and stuff. Everybody knows it when they see it, So,
regarding Tintin, Tintin in America doesn't count. You see, the first three Tintin books, they don't count. They're terrible.
This is a bad one. Are you telling me I have a bad Tintin book?
Yeah, the first three. Tintin in the Land of the Soviets, Tintin in Congo, and Tintin in America. They're stupid. Even Hergé acknowledged that they're stupid, and you really don't need to read them.
I think you're going to have a hard time from now on out finding Tintin in the Congo, too.
Yeah, the first book that counts is Cigars of the Pharaoh. It's the fourth book.
Yeah, in this printing that they show all the books in order, I had the first one that sucks, and they skip right to Pharaohs.
Yeah, you start with Pharaohs because that's the one which has the Cop twins, Thompson and Thompson.
Well, I want to read the Black Island, Tintin, The Adventures of Tintin on the Black Island.
Now, Tim, did you know that's where the Thompson twins group got their name from? Was from the two detective characters in Tintin?
No idea. No, I did not know that.
That's where that name comes from.
Nice. Yeah, Tintin. I know more of Tintin than I know. I've never read any of the books. They've just never have appeared before me.
And Tim, do you know the Power Comics channel that Sequential Geeks is mentioning? Because I don't.
It's been a couple months.
Late 80s DIY books. Okay.
Anytime that oh my God, who does it? Is it Gore Vidal or is it Earl Grey? One of them, somebody will do this montage of new comic book channels that come up. And it's really odd because whenever I play around with YouTube, seeing who's out there, it's around the same time they put one out. I'm going to look up the Power Brothers stuff. It's to the point where you got to understand. And Jared, I know you've been doing this for a while too, but I guarantee I've seen at least 1,000, and I'm not exaggerating, 1,000 comic book channels come and go. So if I see the face or I see something, I'll know about them.
It's kind of like, I hate to compare it to war, but you know how like in World War II, because the Americans were running that awful rebel devil system, which is where they stuck new guys in with squads of men that were veterans that they didn't even want to learn the new guys.
To give them experience.
That's kind of what it is. I see these new channels pop up sometimes. Like they'll be gone soon enough.
Well, I was military. I'm ex-military and Army and National Guard, but never. And I got out 6 months before I would have been deployed. I found out. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff. But over that, and I want to put that out there so it's not my words, okay? But basically, I've had enough friends and served with enough people who were in actual war that said you go in with your buddies after a couple months of seeing your buddies die. When the new guys come in, you're not that friendly because you don't want to get close. You don't know how long they're going to be around for real. And that's how I am with a lot of new YouTube channels. Well, there was a time I got really depressed or I mourned some people that left over the years, and I'm like, I can't do this again.
Going off on a tangent, Con Sooth said he bought some early issues of Concrete. Paul Chadwick's art is beautiful. Yeah, Concrete is one of the best books that's ever been done.
It is. Yeah.
I'm gonna go back and give it a reread. They're all on my shelf, and I haven't read it in a long time. There's so much stuff.
You start from the very beginning.
Yeah, definitely.
If you come in the middle, it's still good, but it's not the same.
Paul Chadwick's work was a little bit of a shock to me to see, because I saw his stuff on a Beauty and the Beast miniseries.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
You know, and then all of a sudden everybody's talking about Concrete a little bit. You're hearing about Dark Horse. I think 1990 I got to read some Concrete. Could not believe it was the same dude. Could not believe it.
It's been a while since he's done any Concrete stuff. I would hope he would do some material.
Didn't he do like some of the last issues of Dazzler too?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the Paul Chadwick I knew. So when I heard people talking about Concrete, I'm like, the Beauty and the Beast, the miniseries. Maybe it wasn't a miniseries. Maybe that's what they turned. I know I remember this right. You had the Beast from the X-Men and Dazzler, and it was called Beauty and the Beast. And
that was the title of the last issues of the Dazzler.
And I had that forever. I just got rid of the book probably around 2016. I finally got rid of a bunch of books, and I found out I had the first. Oh man, what is that Iron Man armor that the Rhodes dudes, the War Machine, War armor? I found out I accidentally gave away the first issue, his first appearance is what I'm getting at. But anyway, yeah, I had that Beauty and the Beast book forever. I swear, I think it was a 4-issue miniseries.
Right.
But anyway, to go from that and then see Concrete by the same dude, couldn't believe it.
There's a lot of good Concrete stories, but there's a one-shot story that's been published in some others. I think it was in Dark Horse Presents, where it's a very thinly veiled version of Concrete goes to this writer's house. And if you know much about Paul Chadwick and who it is, it's Harlan Ellison's house. Really cool story.
Yeah, I don't remember that one. Well, Chadwick, I'm going to have to.
Concrete.
They must have a collection of the early Concrete that ran in Dark Horse Presents.
There are.
Because I have all the Dark Horse Presents issues, but I'd probably be better off looking for a trade of that stuff.
Compilations. There's some both hardcovers and soft covers that.
Because all the other stuff I have is mini-series.
Yeah, later on, Dark Horse started doing some Concrete books, but they were smaller format.
Mm-hmm.
Like an oversized digest, and I didn't like those just because of the format they were in.
All right, hey guys, I'm gonna bow out here, but I'm gonna leave you guys on if you want, because it let me.
No, I think I'm done. I'm done talking. I think we're talking out.
All right.
I don't know about these guys, but
okay. Well, it's as usual, as I say, if anything happens this weekend, or I get some downtime or something like that, maybe I'll throw another link out there if y'all want or something. But great for everybody to pop in. Appreciate it. Y'all have a great weekend. Anybody got any last words to anybody?
Last words. I don't think I have any last words. Go get yourself a copy of this, and I'll send you George Roussos' picture, and you can put it in with your. You can print it out and put it in with your comic. Him coloring that. Matter of fact, if you go to jaredosborne.com and get my Marvel Bullpen PDF, this picture is in there.
Nice. All right. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good one.